Hello. So I have been making videos earlier too, and there is one thing that came out uh, pretty strongly, and that I have a certain unfair advantage um, in facilitating original human intelligence. And that comes, okay, let's just say I have an unfair advantage in what I call as acing the human race, in where we are headed towards. And that comes from I had ground nothing quite earlier, around 2000, starting around 2005 at least. Yeah. And since then, I have been healing the fabric of time space in different capacities, clinical health facilitation, how I've been inquiring into life. Um, Also, why I have come into existence. Those reasons, starting from, okay, given that um, I occupy, Earth gives me the space to be. My body occupies space, and consequently, my understanding of space and my construct of reality. I reconstructed my relationship with life and all that there is from the bottoms up that way. And it's a compassionate build where I chose to be, continue to choose to be a productive citizen of Earth, of life, of all that there is as a child of life. So there's this saying of each one of us as a child of life. I happen to have a experiential understanding of it um, because of my inquiries into it and how I've been doing things since then. And then I also discovered Darwin's theory of natural selection, also talking about compassion as a uh, as a trait that has been seen in nature. And the survival of the fittest is then based on that compassion as being cause for natural selection. Now, having said that, when it's since then that I've been participating in different educational schools, also participated in being a clinical health facilitator in different fields of work, and um, that kind of gives me a head start over how we do things, how, even for example, how space is calculated, or we as Captain Kirk is in the Star Trek series is talking about space, the final frontier, and in search of new civilizations. So I have been reconstructing my life from these paradigms of thinking, and I arrived at a person-centric model of the universe. And so I have had an unfair advantage. And so it becomes necessary, it becomes easier, necessary to speak from these understandings so everybody catches up. So, since we are all part of the human race, and I have a few years since when I've been doing this work, it becomes easier to share from my findings, from my learnings all these years, so everybody else catch up too. And one of the reasons now, over time, I've been facilitating health clinically, and I looked at WHO's global list of diseases, and I've been inquiring into why we have that list, in spite of there being several modalities of healthcare, different paradigms of thinking of how to do the right things too. And there are several findings. There are some things that I found, actually a list of it. I've made another video on it, on some of the findings I made that I've called as. Mm, I'll put the link to that in the description. Um, One of the things is what I call as the drama triad versus the winner triad. Why we do what we do. Now, the drama triad is talking in terms of the victim, perpetrator, rescuer triad. And the winner triad is talking in terms of vulnerability, caring, and assertiveness. Now, now at the heart of the drama triad, I found over time is a wound, something that didn't work or didn't work as well as we'd like to. Then it's kind of a deviation from there, from where we things need to be. Oh, life went like that. And then you begin to function from victim, perpetrator, rescue. The other is the winner triad, vulnerability, caring, assertiveness. Now, that also could be from, oh, something worked, this works, and consequently, then when you're doing more of this, then there is benefits from that. Mm, and there could be peace or a sense of, something worked rather than a wound. Yeah. And that also could get you into what I call as a caretaker syndrome. You, given that you have something, you've had a victory over the past. In that sense, a winner triad. You won over how things were in the past. You healed from a wound, and hence you are in a certain way. And consequently, you could be drawn to giving and taking care. You could get into caretaker syndromes. And over time, I found you need to kind of balance between these two. Be aware of the victim, perpetrator, rescuer triad as well as the winner triad. Why? Because, well, let's just say the food we eat, yeah, or the gadgets we interact with, or the math we function by, yeah. Um, Different people's idea of what is God and what to be believed. Or there's also cosmic influences, cosmic, miasmic, chromatic, caloric influences. Now, that could cause inflammation in our body, or that could cause, say, we're doing things, and then there's a slight distraction. Oh, that food is really nice. Yeah. And then you go into the temptation of it, and then you again go into, oh, I became a victim of, I like this one, it was really nice. You didn't do something bad, you didn't have a wound, but your ego, or I'm this kind of a person, and I have been tending to do this, and I fell from my path. Yeah. And so you say, oh, that happened. Not that, you know, somebody hurt you, but it's just that you went a little off your track of integrity. And consequently, you say you're a victim of, I like that every time. It's just, you're so again, that victim, perpetrator, rescuer, some form of it is again showing up. And you could get caught in that loop again. Yeah. So very fine, subtle movements here. So if you're going to call the victim, perpetrator, rescuer as bad, then we fail to see that there could be deviations from there. It is deviation from the middle line that needs to be there. So either we call it as good, bad, and consequently, if we are not recovering from there, we continue to be in this side. And there are some things that we have recovered and come here, and then we can kind of go there. So if there is not a recognition of which is which, are we in this, the drama triad or the winner triad? And to see that it could be one, one is positive or negative, but it's not neutral. It's not in the middle path. It's either positive or negative. And to that extent, you have sukha or dukkha, good space, bad space. Yeah. Where good space is, oh, things are working, we won over the past and we're doing better. To, oh, this is continuing, and yeah, this happens. This is how life is. Yeah, you got to just work through with things. So you could get into any of those spaces. And why you do what you do could be given by the drama triad or the winner triad. And that makes a difference. And recognizing the symptoms of the drama triad and the winner triad helps us correct our course so that we are coming back on the middle path. Neutral, the golden mean, middle path, where you're not taken by this or that. And what it takes to walk, to toe the line, to walk that tightrope, or to walk that straight line, also takes a few there are certain symptoms by which you can recognize you're on the path versus left versus right. Over the next few days, I will slowly roll out some of those symptoms so it becomes easier to recognize. So this video itself might be long here already. But if you could start thinking in terms of victim, perpetrator, rescuer, or let's just, okay, if you can recognize this thought of, oh, this happened to me again, or I'm doing this to rescue yourself or somebody, or you're doing something to, what's say, to continue to maintain something. Otherwise, things will go better, and then you will be left alone. Yeah, they will get better. You will be left alone. So you're doing things so that you're not left alone. Yeah, and so you're continuing to perpetuate, be a perpetrator of something that is not right. You know it's not right, but you continue to perpetuate it. So you could get into that, or the winner, or it could be the winner triad, where you're vulnerable to the point that somebody can have you be a doormat. Um, so are you that vulnerable, or is it you're doing things in spite of things not working out, or you're doing things being at a soft space where you're kind and considerate, but um, there is a difference between kind and considerate versus I'm there to kick me. Yeah, to I'm so kind. I'm not seeing the risk that there is out there. Yeah, and you're being vulnerable and kind and caring, but without considering the risk out there. In which case, you're just setting yourself up for failure. That's also being vulnerable, but there's a fine balance there if you're without that recognition. And then there is caring too. You could be caring, but uh, you should also kind of be attentive, pay attention to. Um, there is not that reception of care. There could sometimes be abuse, and to recognize how easy it is to get into the victim perpetrator rescuer. You could be caring, but to recognize that fine balance there. Similarly, you could be assertive, and you could be assertion could be coming from, for example, they say positive affirmations, but you could be talking at somebody, or you're asserting, it could be a command. You see a fine balance there between affirming something um, believed to be true, and not just believed to be true, but in a way that another agrees to, where you're speaking to another, noting if the other agrees, in which case there is listening and speaking in balance. Then there is a harmonious assertiveness. Otherwise, you're asserting without there being a reception of the matter. You have won over something in the past, but you're asserting where there is no listening. And so you're kind of imposing sometimes, or not. It's a fine balance there. If you don't recognize you have won over something, but there is not um, that harmony from your assertion. And so recognizing when you're on that middle path where you're communicating, knowing that there are these different variations in the speech, that there are people from the victim perpetrator rescuer and from the vulnerability caring assertiveness groups with different why for being in existence. And then when you're not speaking to the problems faced by different people, and from the space of offering solutions, or so to speak, to offer pathways by which both groups would have an opportunity, a chance for coming to the middle ground. For it's not just, it was positive, so now go to negative. If you're negative, then come to positive. It's not a pendulum, but where you are um, noting the left and the right feet, so to speak, the left and the right wings of the matter, and um, helping the matter find a balance. Um, I'm yet in different stages of speaking this matter, but I'm attempting to speak in a way um, that distinguishes that middle path versus the drama triad versus winner triad. If this video has you think in terms of why you do what you do, is it from the drama triad or is it from the winner triad? That would still be a movement forward. That would still be at least something to think from, maybe pause and then reflect upon, is it from the drama triad or the winner triad? And then see if there is another way to do it. If there's another way by which you, people who are involved, and future generations are not harmed in any way. It might take a little more thinking when you're thinking from that space. How can you, people involved and future generations not get harmed from what you're doing? Then choices you make are likely to be different. Choices would show up when you stay long enough, look long enough for a solution that satisfies this, this condition, this choice of you, people involved, and future generations not getting hurt. But if you recognize that anybody's getting hurt, chances are you're from the drama triad. Or if you notice that you are getting, or there is a win, somebody is winning more rather than hurting, somebody is winning more. So I'll have to distinguish this winner triad. So it's a fine thing. Yeah. So the winner triad has vulnerability, caring, assertiveness. And I over time came to vulnerability, caring, harmoniously assertive. So you could be assertive, but not necessarily harmoniously, which means um, it may be disturbing. Um, it's like let's just say the river flows. If there's too much of water, it gets floods. Um, if it's too less, it is not quite sufficient. Mm, So I will have to discern this harmoniously assertive a little more from there. And what are the symptoms that shows up from there? So the winner triad, I used to think for a long time that it's a good thing. Then I thought, and then I found an S link is required between the drama and the winner triad. And the harmony is when you are um, healing the wound and the win. Yeah. Um, where the win, what you won, can um, can then be added to the recipe in um, healing the differences. Okay, I'll have to speak further from here. Okay. Now, the S link is required so that you're not making the drama triad people bad. Okay, that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is there's a bandwidth of normal. Bad could have a bandwidth, good could have a bandwidth. Too much of goodness is also a little bit of badness there. Yeah. So if something is too good to be true, yeah, it's better to examine finely there because it could just be a morsel too big to handle. And so that could then lead to, oh, give me more, give me more, give me more. Yeah. To the point that you're drained out, you go into caretaker syndrome. Yeah. Where um, it's more than little enough. Yeah, assertiveness. You're being assertive, but a little too much. Yeah, or you're caring a little too much. Vulnerable, a little too much, and you could be a doormat. Um, or you could have that wound, but yeah, that hurts. So we're quite familiar with the hurt bit, but the dynamics from there, rescue out the perpetrator, and there are payoffs from there. But it's the winner triad that okay. Mm, this is where there has been a difficulty in discerning just enough. How much is just enough? Like we have our accounts, bank accounts, we have our different groups, we have our different good things and bad things. Too much of alcohol, not good. You know, dependence on anything too much, not so good. You could say you're vulnerable and in a relationship, but it gets a little too much, not good. Um, bad things are not so good. You're in a job, you don't like it as much. There are things happening. How much of it is, how much of bad is too much? And when that discernment is not there, I mean, it's not all hunky dory. There are good spaces, bad spaces, but how much of which is over and above that bandwidth of normal, where it's going beyond a little up, down, yeah. So I think it's worth thinking in terms of this. I will speak further in discerning those finer details. Thank you so much for your kind interest. Good day.